Hi, I'm Jessica, and when I'm not drinking all the coffee, watching Razorback sports, or hanging out with my family of boys, it's my passion to help elementary music teachers just like you find your unique teaching style. My goal with this podcast is to share helpful tips, strategies, and to give you the motivation you need to gain momentum in your teaching so you can continue being the music teacher rock star you already are. Welcome back, and today we're going to talk about your favorite subject ever. Are you ready? It's testing week and what to do about it in the music classroom. Oh my word, y'all, every single person in your school doesn't like this week. I'm just letting you know. It's not fun. The kids they're not enjoying it. The teachers obviously don't enjoy it, and music teachers don't enjoy it. Why? Because it completely throws everything off. Because you may have heard these phrases. I'm just going to say a few I've heard. Hey, during testing week, don't be too loud in the music room. Oh, can you not have your kids sing that loud? Sure. Or things like, can you take them outside? Or maybe just show them a movie, or, on and on and on. You've probably heard phrases similar to that, and you're thrown off because if this is your first year teaching, you had no idea that this week was a thing. And then you had no idea that you were going to be asked to change up what you had already planned to do with your students this week. Because if it's testing week, that kind of takes precedence over everything else in your school building. So do not fear. Today, I'm going to give you some strategies and some ideas that you can do during testing week so you don't feel like you're losing your mind. Okay, let's be honest. You already are. You just got to buckle your seatbelt and just deal with it, because it's just something that comes with the territory and something that you can't get out of, and something that just takes place all around the country during, testing week is a thing that just happens. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about. There are certain things. So I did mention taking the kids outside. If it's a nice day when you see your students, you're going to see them each different days, but on the day you see those classes, don't be afraid to take them outside, not just to play, but teach them music. There are so many good ideas for teaching music you can do outside. Now, I love taking kids outside to teach them music anyways. I really feel like, even simple activities with just even like kindergarten, working on listening to sounds around you, they didn't really understand that music is all around us. We talk about with your kiddos, like, what do you hear? Identify the sounds. Is that a high or low pitch? Is it, oh my goodness, did that bird sing loud or soft? Are they singing is that like a fast tweet? Being a bird here, not like Twitter. Okay. Is it slower? Just use different ideas like that. Simple ideas for just listening activities. Okay. The next thing you could do is, even though it might be difficult, and we're still talking about being outside right now. Okay. If it's a nice day, we're going to talk about inside activities in a minute. But the next thing you can do is have everybody bring a book outside, or something to write on, and piece of paper, and then some, a few crayons per student, or even just a pencil. And then as they're listening to what's around them, older students, you can have them turning it into a writing activity about, hey, compare the sound you heard outside to, that certain song we worked on this week. Or with the younger kids, let them draw a picture of what they're listening to. Okay? So just be creative like that. Other things outside is there are different games like music relay race, where it's pretty simple, where the kids are in teams, and then it's kind of, what a relay race is, right? Where they have to hand off and then run. Think of the Olympics. They hand off what do they call it? The baton, I guess, because I have ever been on a relay team. Anyways, they hand off the baton, and then the next person runs, and then so on and so forth until they get to the finish line. Well, a music relay race is not that intense. Okay. It's not where they're running, but basically they are having to answer a specific music question, and then they have to hand off, I don't know, something to their teammate, and then make the running simple, or they could skip or twirl or hop or jump or whatever to get to the finish line. But basically, the relay race is, it's not just running. It's you. They have to pass on a certain question, or they can't move on until they answer the question. Or, like, for instance, you're calling out something simple like, I'm just going to think of something off the top of my head, but maybe you've been working on instrument families, okay? And so you call it an instrument, and that teammate has to say the right answer, and then when they pass the baton, you say another question, and then that teammate has to answer the question correctly, and then so on and so forth. Or if you want to just do a regular music relay race, you do it with music, and they have to instead of running. Another way to do a relay race is if you can bring music outside somehow, then they have to walk to the beat. They can't run. They have to walk to the beat. Now you're going to see this gets kind of funny because some kids, you already know what I'm talking about. They get dramatic about it, and they will, instead of walking, they're going to try to stretch their legs as far as possible. But as long as they're doing it to the beat, you can tell them, hey, however you move to the beat, you can go in a zigzag pattern, you can skip, you can jog, you can walk huge steps, but they have to do it to the beat, okay? So that's a really fun way to do it too. Another, like I mentioned, instrument families, well, there is, I think I've mentioned this in another podcast episode, but instrument four corners. And so you have corner for each instrument family, four corners, percussion, brass, woodwinds, and strings. And then when you call it an instrument, the students have to run to the correct family. If they don't go to the correct family, wherever you've positioned these four corners outside, then they're out, okay? And so you keep going until there's one winner. So, and then maybe you can even just some folk dances you've practiced in your classroom. Like I said, if you can bring music outside, do it. And even if you can't there's no way for you to bring music outside, you always have your phone. So maybe you could, I don't know, somehow play it from your phone, then practice folk dances. But even like I said, if you can't bring it outside, the kids can still practice these folk dances while just singing it without any background music at all, okay? Another fun, there's so many, you guys, just even if you just Google music games to play outside, you'll come up with so many ideas. There's so many creative activities you can do with students outside. And the awesome thing is you're outside, so you're not distracting those testing. Now, on the playground, hopefully, it depends on what your school layout is like, but usually on a playground, you're away from windows, you're away from testing, but maybe you're going to have to find a creative spot that's not right by classroom windows, okay? So just, your school better than anyone. So just do the best you can, okay? Okay, but if you cannot go outside, then you're going to have to stay inside, right? Maybe you are, so in your classroom, then come up with some creative movement activities. But what's fun is you got to tell the kids, hey, we got to stay quiet this week, remember? So it's very hard for them. But you're like, we're going to do creative movement activities, but we're going to try kind of like, remind them of when they played the quiet game. We're going to do creative movement, but we're going to be as quiet as we can. So it makes it kind of fun, and there's going to be so many giggles because they're going to be moving, but you got to tell them quiet feet. You're going to just be playing music very softly, and then they are going to be doing, maybe creative movement with scarves. They can always paint high, low, side to side, throw it in the air. Maybe you do a quiet game of freeze dance where they are, instead of dancing like really, like they usually do, maybe they have to tiptoe dance and then they have to freeze. Just do different creative movement activities like that, but make like quietly. There's so many different, like I said, you can use scarves, and then also other movement props, or just their bodies. They don't need to use props if they don't want to, okay? There's also, so we've talked about music literacy before, right? And ways to integrate music. And if you look at my blog, by the way, the domesticmusician.com, wow, I can't talk today, and click on the word blog. Why did I say the word blog? Just click on the blog tab, my goodness. And then go all the way down to the search bar. And if you just type in music integration, you'll see different blog posts I wrote either last year or the year before about integrating music with math, reading, foreign language, science, social studies. Okay. Anyway, so go there and read those because that'll really help you. But simple ways. So getting back on track, we're talking about testing season, but I wanted to talk about that before I forgot. But anyways, let's go back into books. You already probably read books to your students about different things. And if you're not, that's okay. But you can always, even if you're just reading them a story, go look at your school library. You'll be amazed at how many books they have in there. And even if it's not a typical, air quotes, music book, there are so many books you can make musical. All right, let's talk about, I don't know, for instance, Pete the Cat. That's a popular book with a lot of, especially the lower grades. And Pete the Cat already has a song in the book, right? Walking in my school shoes, I'm walking in my school shoes. I don't think any of us really know how the melody goes, but I just kind of make that up. But so while you're reading the book, the kids can pretend that they're to walk to the beat, or they can pat the rhythm of the words on their legs, or they can snap their fingers when you say a certain word. And then when you get into the song part of the book, they sing it with you. So there's so many different book activities that you can create music with, and it's quiet, and they have to stay quiet, and they can't be very loud. And so you're either reading them a book and they're just listening, or you read them a book and they have to stand up and do movement to certain words. Don't use instruments during testing week, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but they can use their bodies to respond. And then also, have like maybe partner activities where they're making up their own creative movement to the words of the book. And then along with that, we talked about doing writing activities outside, writing, not writing, like not in a car. I'm talking about writing, which I say writing. This sounds the same word, but do inside writing activities as well, where maybe they're creating, maybe even if technology is too loud in your classroom during testing week, you give them staff paper, just old-fashioned staff paper, and they're creating their own compositions, or they are writing their own raps, or they are coming up with different rhythms they're writing down, and then they have to perform them by just using their bodies. Maybe that's what they do that week. But we talked about not using instruments. I want to talk about that. During testing week, I would just say, the brave teachers will say, I'm still going to do instruments, but just have them play quietly. Well, that's kind of, let's be realistic. You're always going to have those one or two kids that no matter how quiet you get them to play, or you want them to play, they can't do it, right? We all know those kids who don't have an inside voice. It's the same way with instruments. There's some that don't know how to play quietly. So my personal opinion is just don't do instruments the week of testing. It's okay. And just do a lot of body percussion activities. If if you've worked on a new song, and say, hey, let's apply it to our bodies, and the next week we're going to come back to this and apply it to the instruments. And what's awesome is it's easy for kids to already go from body percussion and then apply it to instruments anyways. And so why not? And then you got music games you can play. There's a game called Rhythm Telephone that's really fun, where it's just like the regular game of telephone, but you have to tap a rhythm and see if you can get all the way to the front of the line without stopping. And then the person in the front has to write the rhythm on the board. There's a bunch of music games, you guys, out there. Another one is Music Pictionary. They have to guess what the kid's drawing. Another one is Name That Tune, and maybe you play a soft song and they have to write down what they hear. There's a bunch of different music games you can find about that, okay? And maybe you still want to do technology, but just some soft activities. Maybe you show another creative movement activity I forgot to mention is if you do have a smart board, or even if you have a computer where you have access to YouTube in your school, which I know some schools do not. And so you have other websites you visit for creative movement. Maybe instead of even playing sounds at all, a really cool thing is the kids are going to have to really be focused in is to play a dance or a movement, and the kids have to watch with their eyes and do what the movement's doing, but they can't talk. And they can't even hear what they're doing. They just have to creatively move with the video. That's a really cool activity because it keeps them quiet and they have to really focus and pay attention. And then the last one is maybe you have some games in your classroom like Rhythm Bingo. That one's really fun and it's really easy. You basically just give all the kids a bingo board and then some chips. And then they have to put them on the correct rhythm, right? There's some other good music games, but that's one of the easiest ones to play, and it's super simple. And so I would love to hear your thoughts about this. What do you do in your classroom during testing week in the music room? It is something it's not easy, and it's very hard to keep the kids quiet. And then not only that, I want to mention too, your students are worn out. Sitting there, think about you taking any kind of test, right? Whether it was in elementary school or your ACT or SAT or any of your teacher exams to get into before you had to graduate or get your first teaching job. It's not easy. You have to sit. And then what happens after you're done taking a test? You're worn out, exhausted, and you just don't want to do anything. Your kids are not going to want to do a lot of extra things. So just keep things light in the music room during testing week and keep it very fun, and don't do test yourself that week. Just keep it fun, relaxed, where they're still learning and engaging, but it's different than what you would normally do. And that's okay. All right. So what I was going to say is, I would love to hear about what you do during testing week. Tag me at Jessica Peresta on Instagram or on my Facebook page, The Domestic Musician, and let me know, what do you do during testing week in the music room so others can get new ideas as well? All right. And I will be back on here next week with a new episode. Have an amazing week. Thank you so much for listening in to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, I would love for you to review the show and leave a rating on iTunes. To find out more about how I can help you gain momentum in your elementary music teaching career, head to thedomesticmusician.com, where you'll find free downloads, courses, the blog, and so much more. Continue teaching music and never doubt the impact you're making each and every day in the lives of your students.